One. Hey, I know that you are like most childcare owners and you're looking to purchase playground equipment for your childcare center. We all know it's more than just picking out fun swings and slides, although that might be the best part. It's also about designing a safe, engaging, and durable space that meets the needs of both the children and the center's budget. Today's episode, we're going to explore what childcare buyers need to know before making this important investment, from design and function to budgeting and finance. And of course, let's not forget the important surfacing factors that ensure safety and longevity of your equipment. We are joined today with one of my friends, John. And he actually sold me several pieces of equipment for my child care center. So I can talk from experience that he has a great product. So welcome to the show, John.
Erica, thank you for having me.
So tell folks a little bit about the company that you work for and a little bit about why you think the products that you sell are so great.
Sure, no problem. I work for UltiPlay Parks and Playgrounds, and we're based out of Blackstone, Mass. And we cover all of New England. So anybody living in any of those states, we can certainly take care of you. We are a rep agency that also does in-house installations, and we rep several manufacturers. Playworld Systems is our major manufacturer. We have several other playground companies like Berliner, Earthscapes from Canada, and some other smaller components where you can get replacement parts as well. Now, when you're looking at sort of like getting your playground equipment, there are several factors that comes into play. One is, your space, and do you have enough space to put in equipment? Because you have to consider the use zone that's required for all the equipment itself that we're putting in. Once you figure out how much space you have, then we can kind of sit down and go over what your budget is and then come up with a design that is really going to meet your needs and your kids' needs at your facilities.
Okay. So when it comes to purchasing playground equipment for a child care center, what do you think are the most important factors to consider in terms of like design and functionality?
Yeah, I think when you're looking at trying to put all your money into what the kids get out of it, and that is all the money going into the equipment. So we want to really focus on how can we eliminate the costs or reduce the costs of the other facets to put all the money that we can into the equipment. There are several components to think about. The site prep. Do we have to do anything to the site prior to getting in there? Excavating material, etc. We have to look at how much the freight's going to cost for the equipment coming from the manufacturers. Then you're looking at the installation cost itself, and then the surfacing costs. And there are five different types of surfacing, so you can kind of figure out what's going to fit into your budget. But we walk you through that process and try to meet your needs as much as possible. Obviously, budget constraints and whatnot. But there are grants out there. Playworld offers sales for the first part of the year and second part of the year, so people try to take advantage of that. We also offer financing through a third party as well, which you've used before.
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy. That way you can kind of pay it out in payments.
Yeah.
So a lot of facilities that are starting out or don't have the capital funds right away can use that as a resource as well.
Yeah. You know what I think I like too is don't feel like you have to like build this gigantic playground all at once because we did ours in sections. We went with one piece of equipment and then we added a few other pieces. So, and keep that in mind as you start to build it out too. I think that would be a consideration. Like instead of before you put a big piece of playground equipment plop in the middle of your playground, think about, will I want to expand on this? Will I be taking in other age groups, right? Because obviously there's that factor too when you're selecting the equipment is what are the age groups that you serve, because not every piece of equipment is made for every age group. So think about that too. I know lots of programs right now are thinking about how they're going to expand either in infant and toddlers or school age with the change in the landscape for preschool. So think about that, I would say too, when deciding what you're going to purchase. Can you explain how the design of playground equipment can impact both the physical development of the children and the daily operations of a child care center?
Yes. So we try to design a playground that's challenging that's developmentally and physically appropriate for that age group. And something that that child can grow into in a couple years. So if you're in an age group of 2 to 5 year olds, we're going to design a playground structure that allows a 2 to 5 year old, usually a 2 year old or a 3 year old, to be able to grow and use it and being challenged as they get older. So you don't want to just offer something that they can get on everything as a 2 year old and all of a sudden they're bored with it after one
Yeah.
year. So we try to design a playground structure that have challenges for upper body strength, balancing, and alternates back and forth between those elements as well. So those are types of factors that we want to consider in it, and also access and accessibility for your playground, which would be important as well.
Yeah, I really liked some of the pieces we had, like had pianos on them, and I think especially if you have bigger equipment, but that has pianos on the lower level for younger children. I found like those were some of the pieces that we really liked, and I really loved. That it matters what I loved, but the kids equally loved those cubes. I don't know what you call them. Do you just call them cubes? Like what are those called?
Yeah, those are called Play Cubes by Playworld Systems.
Oh,
It's
loved
unique
them.
to them. It's a pretty cool feature to it.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I actually I did a photo shoot for a YouTube channel, and I used some of those cubes in my photo shoot. Even the older kids, I've got kids who are 12, 13 years old, and they love them too. So it is a really great piece of equipment.
Yeah, it's a cool
So,
feature.
yeah, so when you're budgeting for playground equipment, it can be challenging for many centers. What should childcare providers know about balancing the cost with quality, and how can they prioritize features? Because, and I know you can look in I'm
Hmm.
going to say Walmart catalog, but there are different levels of quality, and price is certainly a factor. And then also, some centers that have had things imported from outside of the country. Like, so can you talk a little bit about that? How do you balance to make sure you have quality and safety and longevity?
Yeah, that's a great point, Erica. A lot of facilities will say, okay, well, I have a very limited budget and I want to put in a residential component in there that has everything into one. So it has the swing and the slide all in one component. That meets the regulations and standards for residential pieces. But when
Mm,
you're operating a facility, some of the licensing that are going to require you to have in-ground mounted commercial grade equipment. That'll sustain you a lot longer than your residential pieces as well. And also the safety components that require through the ASTM testing standards that encourage more safety guidelines towards a facility operating more of a playground in their area. So you kind of want to be careful. Obviously, each facility is going to have different parameters that say, well, I can't afford this. I got to go with this. I mean, you got to do what's right for your facility and for your kids.
mhm,
But if you're able to afford and to deal with the commercial grade quality, that's the best quality you're going to get. The warranties are going to suffice, and it'll last you a long time. And again, our company, some rep agencies can facilitate and service you as well. If there are any issues or concerns that you need any replacement parts or something tightened. So we offer that as well, but you have to really try to obviously do what's right for your facility. So, everybody has different constraints, and we try to say, can we meet you here or meet you there, and make it work. So those are some of the factors you want to keep in mind.
yeah, and I would say from a teacher hat, right, or a director hat, I also think too when you're selecting your equipment, like it should be reflective of or continuation of your teaching space, right? So if you're, I'm gonna say Montessori or nature based,
Mm-hmm.
maybe the particular colors that you pick or the particular materials that you pick for your construction are going to be a factor. I think that I always feel like if that's your philosophy inside, it should match the outside. And if you invest heavily in the equipment in your classroom and you want your classroom to aesthetically look a certain way, you can't really kind of cheap out on the other end. So I know budgets are tight, which is, as you mentioned earlier, we used financing. And again, my podcast is not sponsored by anybody. So the things that I talk about here are true and real. I found that the financing, especially, we spent almost $100,000 on our playground. And again, we did it in pieces, but the financing really truly was pretty easy. And I think at this small location where I think we got something that was, I don't know, $20,000 or so. I think I was paying $450 a month. That was like $100 a week to have a beautiful brand new piece of commercial equipment that many kids could play on. I think that might have been, probably 6 or 7 kids could have played on that all at one time. So, I mean, I felt like it was a good investment. And when parents come for those tours, I'm telling you, that is a big factor in them making those decisions of what does the playground look like? Is it safe? Is the surfacing there? All those pieces. I think that's something that parents really consider, for sure. Like we made sure we had a lot of space at our program, way above what's required. For
Right.
sure. But
It's important, especially when you're having a facility and you're making all this investment in your staffing and your building and your classrooms. You might as well complete the picture. Like you said, when you have tours and people picking and choosing where they want to send their kids, they're looking for the whole gamut. Do you have the right teachers, good teachers, and do
hmm
you have the outdoor facility that's really going to meet the needs of the kids? So you're absolutely right.
yeah. And I'd say, like, particular parts of the country for sure. Like, if you live in Florida, like we're in New England, but you live in Florida, those kids are using that playground literally every day, right? Every day you're open, they're out on that playground. Now, some places, there's some climate changes or issues, but for the most part, you're gonna get your kids out as much as you can because we know that kids need gross motor activity, they need fresh air. And so having things that are safe and fun and engaging for them is really truly part of what we're doing when we're teaching. And so that makes me think about safety. Like safety is always a top priority. Could you walk us through like key considerations when it comes to like surfacing materials? Maybe what's the best choice to ensure that it is safe?
Right. Yeah. Again, that there are 5 types of surfacings that are out there. And it goes from the most affordable to the most expensive. The most affordable is your wood chips, and they have to be certified for impact attenuation. So it's manufactured and it's through a machine that allows the material to be in different sizes. So when it's all compacted on top of each other, it compacts and it creates a sponge surfacing. That's also considered a loose fill material, and that becomes it can be a maintenance nightmare as well if you're not raking it back into different areas like under slides or under swings. So another loose fill material is the rubber mulch that you can get that's not biodegradable, but that still is a loose fill material. You're not requiring as much thickness on that as wood chips yourself. Wood chips are primarily needing about 12 inches. Rubber mulch can be about 7 to 9 inches. And that all depends on your fall height of your equipment. And then you're going to get into more of you got interlocking tiles, you got turf. A lot of people know is like astroturf, but it's like a padding would go underneath there, and
Mhm.
those require different types of subsurfacing prep. So then you're going to look at the site prep is going to be a factor in those surfacings as well. And the Cadillac of all that everybody really wants is that port in place rubber
Mhm.
seamless surfacing. It is really nice, but it's expensive.
Yeah.
Um, and it takes about 48 hours to cure once that goes in, and that's usually whatever the thickness is. It could anywhere from 2 inches to 4 to 5 inches, depending on the critical fall height of your equipment. And that hopefully your representative would be able to work with you and say, okay, you're going to require this much thickness in order to keep it safe for the kids. And that surfacing's got to go all the way around in the use zones. So you're looking at 6 feet beyond all the components, all the way around. And swings are different, and they have a different use zone. But keep that into mind where you can't really have your movable objects that you would have at a preschool, like you could have a trike or something else that the kids like to climb up or bring it closer to the structure itself. You got to keep that in mind so that way when if somebody falls off of it, they're not hitting into any of those equipment.
All the different options available, how can childcare buyers ensure that their playground equipment investment aligns with both their immediate needs and the long term goals?
Well, that's a good question. That's going to go with, we'll work with the director and find out, okay, what are your biggest needs for your kids? Um, what requirements do you have with your space? Sometimes your spacing will dictate what kind of equipment we can fit in there. If you have an open format or a lot of space, then we pretty much can work with you on any of the components on there and meet your needs, whether you want something more running, open, the age group you're really focusing in on, um, fencing requirements, if you have any of those as well, you can keep that in mind. And then we'll pretty much we'll go with like, do you want more climbing? Do you want more slides? It's really based on the preferences that you have as a director and what you want to give your kids. Do you want more socialization components available for your kids? A passive area, a more active area. Those are some of the things that we consider and we try to put into the design to sort of meet your needs. And would provide you usually with a couple of design options, and then obviously colors is, it's like picking paint. There's so many different variable colors for variations for that. So usually that's the last thing we want to touch on.
Okay. And as we wrap it up, let me ask you, what are some of the most common mistakes or oversights that childcare centers should avoid when they're purchasing their playground equipment?
Yeah, finding a company that will work with you in case something goes wrong. I find that a lot of facilities will work with a vendor, get it built, and it's usually through a third party because they don't have their own installers. And all of
Hmm.
a sudden, they have a problem with it within a month or 2 months, and the company they bought it for will not service them. So you're kind of stuck with that. So trying to find a vendor that could meet all your needs and service you later on down the line in case you need something, or if you want to phase things out to work with you in phasing as well. So you don't want to get stuck with that. But keep that in mind as well. So working with somebody that can service you.
Okay, that's great advice. So, folks who are interested in learning more are going to be able to find John in the links below. And as always, remember it's the small details that make a big impact on the success of your childcare business. I'm your host, Erica Scocchio, and you are listening to the Childcare Director's Chair podcast. Have a great day.